What's up? How you doing? Here we are. Beautiful day today. Beautiful day. Blue sky. No wind. Maybe a little breeze. Maybe like 1.37 miles per hour. Very light. Water. Ice. Delicious. You know, when I was a kid, sometimes at night I'd wake up and I'd say, oh man, I'm thirsty. And in those days we had freezing water from our sink. Tap water was freezing cold, and I love cold water. So I would wake up, I'd go to the bathroom, and I'd open up the sink water. I'd let it run 15-20 seconds, get it to come, nice and clean out, and then I'd put my hand underneath and I'd start drinking cold water. And our water had just the right amount of minerals that it had a very good flavor. There was another place like that. My aunt and uncle, they lived in a place, a house way back in the 70s, and that house had really, really good tasting water. Not only that, it was freezing cold, even colder than the water at my house. I've told my cousin, because now she's grown up, and I've told her that house had the best water. That house and my house, very similar, but that one had a little bit better, tasting water and a little bit colder. Now I add ice. We have cold water here, but not quite as cold as the water back there. Man, delicious. Radio. I'm a big radio guy. I grew up on radio. Not just music. Of course, music is the obvious. I listen to all kind of music. You name it, I hear it. Even the new stuff. Even now, where I'm past my prime, I listen to the new stuff. Brand new stuff, I listen to it. But I listen to talk radio. I listen to one of my favorite things years ago. There was a station in LA that would play old time radio, the drama hour. And so I would put it on every night. They had the sound effects, they had the door slamming, Sometimes it was a Western, sometimes it was a mystery, murder mystery, those type things, a drama. And I would have the radio on loud, loud, like 6.5. And then I would listen to these things, and my imagination would make the story real in my mind. So I'm a big fan of the drama hour. Matter of fact, sometimes now on YouTube I will go to that and listen to old radio shows from the 30s, 40s, 50s. I love it. But I got into talk radio when I was about 13, 14, around there. Discovered AM talk. And I don't mean like politics and things like that. I listen to that stuff as well. I listen to all that stuff. But, there was some lighter radio programs that were mainly open lines. You could call in and just whatever you felt like talking about, you could talk about it, and the host didn't really want to make it all political. Matter of fact, one of the guys that I would listen to back in the old days, he said, let's keep it light, no politics tonight. So, a few times I called in, and I'll give a story in a second of what I called in for. So there was a guy on the radio, very popular guy. He was on 10 to 2. And I would listen to him from 10 to, probably, I don't know, because I would fall asleep back then early. I would get to sleep at, like 11 o'clock, and I would get up at 7. So I would probably listen for about 45 minutes to an hour. And he had a giveaway, a gift. So if you would call him up and give him a good call, In other words, say, hey, I have a friend, he's, you know, I don't know, he's a ninja, and he would make a great interview. You want to call him, and if he agreed, and then that person that you told him about came on the air, you would get a t-shirt from that radio station. And I always wanted a t-shirt, but I never had a good call. So one time I ran into him in person. I was at a mall, and there was a McDonald's on the other side of the mall, and I felt like getting something. I was a little bit hungry. So I'm waiting in line, and I ordered my meal, and they had the line was long, but they had a special back then. They would give you a pen, I forget what it was. So I looked behind me after I ordered, and here's the guy from the radio station, like about 2 or 3 hours before he was going to go on the air. So I said, hey, I go, you're, you know, and he goes, yeah, how you doing? And we talked for about, you know, a minute. Very nice guy. So that night, I'm listening to him, and he had asked a question, and he had changed the rules a little bit. He said that if anybody can answer this question, you will win a t-shirt. So he asked the question that I know the answer to. So I dialed really fast. That would have been like probably the second or third time I had called him. It's not like he remembered, right? I'm talking about in the past few years. Didn't matter anyway, but. So I call him, I make it through, which was unusual. Now I'm very excited because I know the answer. So when you call talk radio, you hear the program going on live as it's happening, minus the 7-second delay. So you have a delay on the radio, so they can block out anything they don't want you to hear, like bad words or something like that. So they have 7 seconds of time to cut off and prevent that from going over the airwaves. So I could hear him, and the producer said to me, what's your call about? And I said to him, well, I know the answer to that question, so I want to get a t-shirt. And he goes, what's the answer? And I told him, and he goes, okay, well, you're on in a few. So there were like 2 or 3 people ahead of me, and all of a sudden there's one person ahead of me, and the producer guy says to me, you're going to be next. So the guy in front of me, I hear him say this, hey, he goes, he's on the air now, he says, hey, I know the answer to that question. And the second he said that, I felt like a balloon that got deflated, because I go, he's not going to be calling in if he doesn't know the answer. So he knew the answer, and I was like, oh man. So anyway, they put me on after him anyway, and I'm like, I told the guy, I go, well, the previous caller took my thunder and ran with it. I said I knew the answer to that question, and I wanted to get a t-shirt. And then I said, by the way, I met you tonight at McDonald's. And he said, he goes, you know what? He goes, I'm going to give you a t-shirt anyway. So he sent me a t-shirt, and I had it for years and years until it started breaking apart, and my mother turned it into a mopping cloth for the kitchen. Not by my permission, but that's what happened. So anyway, that's what happened. I finally ended up getting a t-shirt. But I've always been a radio guy. Well, always, for many, even before I discovered talk radio, I used to listen to, rock, a lot of classic rock, a lot of, contemporary music, pop, and a blend of everything. I'm not kind of like on one genre. I'm not, okay, I only listen to, alternative country or something. I'm not that kind of guy. I listen to everything. I like stations that mix different styles. I don't want to be like a cultural snob, you hear just one kind of music and that's it. So yeah, in the old days I would listen to AM because AM was rock, and I don't know what happened. There was some kind of transition from AM rock to FM rock. And by the way, FM radio waves sound a lot better than AM. When you hear music from AM and then you hear the same stuff on FM, FM sounds much better. Anyway, I digress. Got some shovels here, I just bought them. Look at this. Fiberglass. It's very strong. So this one it opens up thin holes, and I need this. See that? Put it there. It probably will not stay there, but and then I have a regular shovel. So this one here, regular. Now what happens is you go out to the desert and hi Amanda.
Hi.
What's going on?
Nothing. How are you?
All right, it's Amanda right here. So I go out to the desert, and what I do is a lot of times I will open up a hole in the ground, and I will fill it up with wood charcoal, and then I'll light it up and wait until it becomes red, and then I will put steaks, chicken, whatever. But I open up a hole about that deep, about that big. It's in the ground. I put a metal grate on top, and then I'm cooking it. Really tastes really good, really good flavor. So there's another, I forget what they're called, but you open up a hole in the ground about that deep, that wide, fill it up with charcoal. But before you do that, you open up a hole Mama's boy rushing to get home, get a little kiss on the cheek from Mama. All right, anyway, so what you do is you open up that kind of hole in the ground, then you open up a side hole about that diameter right there coming through, and you fill it up with charcoal, and then oxygen comes in through here and feeds the fire, and you get a better cookout. Because when you open up a hole with charcoal without the opening vent, it kills the fire. It can't get enough oxygen in there, and it burns it all up, and then you don't have a good fire. So I have this, although I will say in the desert it's very hard to dig holes because the ground is very rocky. It's dirt, but there's also a lot of rock in there. So believe me, I've opened up holes there, not for the obvious reasons. I mean, I didn't take anybody out there in the 1977 Cadillac, but for barbecuing, and it really takes a lot out of you. I have a pitchfork, which helps a lot, but it's not good ground in a lot of places, I'm sure, because people do farming out there as well. So I'm sure there's areas where they look at and they go, okay, here's a good area to plant some I don't know, tomatoes. But where I've gone, it's very difficult. It takes a lot out of you to open up a hole. Ah, man, delicious. When I was a kid, my father and my mother, they got a house. I was like that big. And so this house had a garage in the backyard. But it was old, and my father didn't really need a garage. He wanted a bigger backyard. So, and I'm the only one that remembers this because my siblings, they were either not alive at the time because they weren't born yet, or they were too small. They don't remember. But there was a garage in the backyard, and my father knocked it down, and then little by little we tossed it, and eventually the side where the garage was in was just dirt, no grass. So my father decided he was going to use a shovel and open up a hole where it looked to me when I was a kid that hole was huge. Like if I fell in there, I wouldn't be able to get out. It looked deep and wide and all of that. But thinking about it now, from my point of view, POV, it was probably, I don't know, 2 feet deep by 3 feet across, something like that. So my father said to me, go around, and if you see rocks anywhere on the property, bring them here and throw them in the hole. So I became interested. It was like playing a game. So I went everywhere in the yard. I collected rocks, gravel, you name it, and I threw them in there. And there was probably, I don't know, a couple of hundred little rocks in there. And then my father filled up the hole, and with a rake, smoothed it all down, threw grass seeds, and then he put this mesh. And about 7 or 8 days later, it started to come through. And then, years later, I would think about that. I go, wow, if I open up a hole right here, and even today, if I open up a hole right here, I'd find a collection of rocks. Like if somebody was digging there for no reason 100 years from now, they would say, wow, I wonder how these rocks all gathered in this one spot. That was us. Good stuff. So anyway, going up to the garage were 2 rows of like, it's like a little road, a pathway made out of cement for your car, because if you didn't have that in the summertime or whatever, with the rain it would get mushy. So they had these concrete pathways where your tires would step on and go into the garage in the back. My father never took those out. He put dirt on top, threw grass seeds and grass grew there, and every once in a while I would look and there would be a little patch about that big of an opening, and you would see that it was concrete, and it would bring back the memory of the garage that was back there. And then the other thing that existed in my backyard when my parents bought that house, there were 2 poles, metal on the outside and concrete on the inside, 2 of them, and there were clothesline. Right, they had clothesline there. And my father said, we don't need this. So instead of digging them out, which they were kind of deep in, my father decided he was going to cut them at the base. So my father was there, I was there, and one of my father's friends were there, and my father cut them, and then he shook them, and they broke off. So when I became older and I would cut the grass, every once in a while I would pass over the poles, and you could see the cement tops flush with the ground. And I would remember that there were 2 poles there. Just, interesting stories that happened in the past. Nobody knows about them but me now. Good water. I filter this. I have a big filter. It goes through. The ice too, they go through a filter. But, it's very tasty. A lot of times filters remove too much and they don't taste. This one has a few minerals in it. I have had water from Hawaii, very good water. I've had water from Iceland, which is very good water. Matter of fact, when I buy water from Iceland, I bring it home and I put it in the freezer for about an hour until it gets really cold, and then I sit back here and I enjoy a little beverage of water. But yeah, today is a very beautiful day today. If this was a long time ago when I was a kid again, I would be out there with my bike right now. Nobody would know where I would be. They would be like, where's, like if anybody would even ask. Nobody cared back then. Where's Nick? They would say, oh, he's somewhere on his bike. They had no idea. They had no idea, because a lot of times I wouldn't be around my house. And I never had an instance where they needed me for something and they took to the streets to find me. Never. It was like, even when I would get home, my mother would say, we were looking for you, where were you? That never happened, ever. I would have been like, what do you need? You're looking for me, unnecessary. I used to climb trees when I was little. I look at them now, because some of the trees are still around that I used to climb, a lot of them are. And I go, wow, I used to climb up that thing and then get back down. I remember there was this tree in a hidden lot. There was this lot on my street that was vacant. And over the years, trees and shrubs had grown, and it was kind of like a hangout. I used to hang around there all the time. So there was a tree all the way in the back, and it was very tall, and I would climb it all the way to the top, and I could see my house that was way on the other side. I would see my house from the tree. And I would look around. I was like a lookout from up there, and there was a neighbor who was next to this lot, and she knew who I was because she was a lunch cafeteria worker in one of my schools. So she would say, hey Nick, how you doing? And I would be like, I'm fine, I'm good. And she had a daughter and a son who I knew from my kindergarten days. But anyway, I would get up on the tree and climb it, and I used to climb every tree in the neighborhood. Every tree in my neighborhood, if I could get up to the first branch, I was up there. There was a tree on one of the blocks near my house. We would play hide and seek in my neighborhood, and I would climb that tree to keep an eye out on the people that were looking out for us. So I would inform my friend down below. I would say, hey, they're coming this way, we got to go. Very fun times. But one of the best memories of tree climbing, there was a tree about a half a block from my house in somebody's property, in their front lawn there, which was surrounded by bushes. And when it was early, like a Sunday or something, I would walk up there in the summertime, and it was full of mulberries. It was a mulberry tree. And I would climb the mulberry tree, and I'd start eating mulberries, like one after the other. I'm even to this day, I am a big fan of mulberries. So one time I was up there and I was eating and eating. I must have been up in the tree for a half hour, and all of a sudden the front door starts to open, and I go to jump down, and the old man and woman, I never saw the old woman, but the old guy, he came out and he was like, get off the property. He started yelling. So I ran away. He thought he was going to be chasing me, some 80-year-old chasing me. So then I would go again, like quickly eat a few, but there's not a mulberry tree that I could pass when I was a kid. Even now, if I see a mulberry tree, I have to stop, eat the mulberries. My mother-in-law has a mulberry tree, and beautiful. I mean, they're huge. Like in another, I don't know, month or so, they'll start, and very juicy. Just, you know, I could eat those all day. She's got a really good tree, but you know, they water them. So, and then there was one time, there was one in town, white mulberries though, and I couldn't stop eating, you know, especially because I don't know, people don't really eat those. Like, you know, in my time, if I saw mulberries, I couldn't leave until I finished them. So anyway, I used to climb trees a lot. One time I climbed a tree and I couldn't get back down. I was thinking, is this going to be a situation where somebody calls the fire department and the fire department raises up its ladder and pulls me down? Because I went up so high, and when I went up, I was hugging the trunk because the branches were, you know, not that close together. So I climbed up doing that, but then when I was trying to get down, it kind of looked to me like the branches were way too low for me to reach, and I got stuck at one point. And then I started thinking about it. I go, well, I'll grab the trunk and slowly go down, and I did. Well, yeah, I thought the fire department was going to show up and rescue me. One time the fire department did show up. I had this kid in my neighborhood. Me and him were not friends because we got into it in the second grade in a field. So we never, you know, were friends. But one time I arrived on the same street where I used to do jumps with my bike, and I could hear somebody crying. So I rode my bike up to the area there, and there was the kid that I'm talking about now. He had made, I guess he had stolen a grocery cart, you know, one of those carriages from the grocery store, and he cut the top off and used the bottom as kind of like a skateboard or something to, you know, go down a hill with. And so he put a piece of wood on top, and as he was going down on this skateboard thing that he made, his thumb, as he had it behind, you know, with his balance going, his thumb got pulled into the back of the wheel. And the back of the wheel has about that much opening. There's a metal cover and the wheel, and there's maybe like half-inch opening, and his thumb got pulled in there, right? And he was crying and crying. And when I arrived there, there was a neighbor, you know, who had gone in and called the fire department. And all of a sudden, from me being there and the neighbor, all of a sudden there was like 50 people from the neighborhood. That's how it was in those days. If you had an accident or something, the whole neighborhood would come out and gather around. So everybody gathered around, and it was intense. I thought they were going to cut his thumb off. His thumb got pulled in and jammed all the way to the joint, in between the wheel and the metal casing. And then the fire department came, and they were looking at it. And then what they did is they took him, and they with the carriage, and they put him in the fire department ambulance, and they took him to the hospital. Well, I hadn't seen him again until a couple of years later. I ended up going to the same school with him, and his thumb was okay. So apparently they got to the hospital and somehow they were able to take the wheel apart and they saved his thumb. But it was intense. Yeah, back when I was a kid, if an accident happened or somebody got hurt or whatever, everybody would come out. Everybody. It was like people from all over the place. And a lot of times that stuff happened on weekends. So, got some chairs here I want to talk about. Look at that. See that? Look at that. So I've been looking for a chair like this for years. My favorite chairs. When you sit on them, it feels good. You're nice and comfortable. Hickory, nice strong wood. It's straw. They weave it, and it lasts for years. So I was looking for this for years and years, couldn't find. I knew a guy a long time ago that would make these kind of chairs, but he died, doesn't exist anymore, and you can't find businesses that make them. So I happened to be at the right place at the right time about a month ago, and I found this chair and I got it. So I'm very excited, and it's just, I don't know, I just love these chairs. So then after that, I found a smaller chair. This one is oak. Look at that. Beautiful. Beautiful, comfortable, So these are my preferred chairs. In the old days you would go to a restaurant, and if they had a sidewalk cafe, where they set up the tables on the outside, they all had these kind of chairs. And you'd go, you sit there, you'd have your nice meal, nice steak, could be chicken, could be nice fish from the Mediterranean Ocean. And they always had those kind of chairs. So I've been looking for a long time. So I found somebody who manufactures these overseas by the thousands, right? So I texted them, and then I said, wait a minute, they're not going to respond because they only deal with restaurants that order in bulk. I don't want to order a whole, like 100 chairs. I just want one, and then I got another one. But anyway, so I'm very happy. Look at that. Beautiful chair. Nice. I'm right here. I will be using this in the desert. That's why I got it. Go to the desert in the morning, put your chair there when the sun is, coming up on the horizon. Have a little table on the side, make some nice coffee, and then enjoy the coffee. And take a walk around, get a little tired, have the chair with you, and sit down again. So like I said, I was very happy when I found that. Yeah, desert is especially nice when it's not windy. So I have an app specifically for that reason. Now I still go when it's windy, but if I'm planning on cooking, I try and avoid a windy day. So I go up there when it's below 3 miles an hour, the wind, if there's any, like a breeze. Because sometimes the desert can get like 20, 30 mile per hour wind gusts, and you can't cook in that. It's not pleasant. Anyway, today, Saturday, if this was my childhood days, right now, what time is it? Right now it's 4:30. Right now, I'd probably, if I wasn't on my bike, like say it was one of those days where I was in, just doing something in the house, I would probably right now be watching bowling. I don't know, I was into watching bowling. I used to love watching Earl Anthony, And what's that guy, Chris Roth? There's a couple of legends back then. Yeah, I used to enjoy that. And then there was on Sundays around this time they would play Tarzan. Love watching Tarzan. And then I had an uncle who spoke Spanish, fluent. He had a girlfriend in those days, and he would take me places. He'd come by the house, pick me up, and we'd go somewhere, So I had a lot of fun time with him. He was a good guy to hang around with. And his girlfriend back then was very friendly with the gifts. They had bought me a piano, electric one, and a bunch of other things. But I spent a lot of time with him. This was before he got married and had his own family. So he would come by and pick me up. And so he spoke Spanish, and every once in a while on a Sunday, there would be a Spanish program on. And I didn't know what they were saying, so I would call him up, and he would turn on that station, and he would translate over the phone. So yeah, that was a long time ago, and he drove using both his feet. He'd have his left foot on the brake, his right foot on the gas. And one time I told him, "Why you drive like that? It's supposed to use one foot." And he goes, "It's faster this way for me." But what happens in an emergency, like when you're heading towards something and you want to stop, you tend to hit both, so it takes away from your stoppage time. I don't know if he did that after that, because I'd never been in a car again with him after, when I get to a certain age. I'd never been in a car again with him to drive. I always would find him somewhere that my parents would take me, when I was a little bit older. But back then he had these big construction boots, and he would drive with both feet. He had a Pontiac. He had a blue Pontiac back then, Bonneville. It might have been a Catalina, one or the other. But I remember that, and I'm a big fan of Pontiac, even though it doesn't exist anymore. I love the steering wheel. I love Pontiac anyway, all the designs from the 70s. Of course, Trans Am was Pontiac. I love that car. And they got rid of Pontiac. They kept Buick, which I was never a fan of Buick. I was a fan of Pontiac, but they got rid of Pontiac. Even Pontiac sounds cool. Pontiac. Buick? I don't know. But it made some nice cars. Everybody knows that I'm a big fan of the GTO 1967, even the 70, the Judge, but love that 67 Pontiac GTO. 4-speed manual transmission, had a 400 cubic inch engine, a lot of power in that. The manual though, nice either, like a nice black, nice fat mag tires, about that wide. So they made that, the Catalina, the Bonneville, was it the Grand Am there? Then they had the Trans Am, but what was the other one? There was one other car I liked, Pontiac. But yeah, Pontiac was a great car company. If it were left up to me, I would have said, get rid of that Buick, keep the Pontiac. You had that nice Trans Am with the Eagle, the one that Burt Reynolds brought back to life. A lot of people that year, 1977, 78, those years, were buying Trans Ams. Like, that made a comeback. It was a beautiful car, a lot of power, nice design, nice interior, nice steering wheel. So yeah, I love the Pontiac cars. As a matter of fact, one time I went, a few times, not once, but a few times I went to a massive junkyard, like a place where the cars go to die. And they had the cars separated by, make. So they would be like, yeah, these are all the General Motors cars, those are all the Fords, Toyotas over there. So I wanted to get a steering wheel from a Pontiac, like a mid-70s, early 70s, whatever, Pontiac, even Cadillac too, I was looking. So I brought my tools, I went in there, and I started trying to take it apart, and it took forever, and at the end I just said, it looks like I'm going to break it, and it's not going to be in one piece, so I left it. But I always wanted to have a steering wheel from Pontiac from the 70s, like 72, 73, 74, those years. just I love the style. You know, now they're all the same. Steering wheel's not that fancy anymore. And Cadillac had some nice steering wheels. Cadillac had that big, you know, T in the middle, like Pontiac did, but it was fatter. PH. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm gonna go inside, see what's going on with the rest, and we'll see. We may go somewhere. I think my kids are gonna do something. They wanna do an escape room. So we will go with them and investigate. All right, that's it for now. Ciao.